Do Revenge is a 2022 Netflix original movie that claims to capture all of the joy of the teen drama rom-coms of the 90s and 2000s while adding the twist of following the plot beats of the Hitchcock thriller Strangers on a Train, just with a modern sensibility. It does none of these things, and everything it attempts to do, it does so poorly, it's actually quite shameful. Now you might look at me and ask, hey Joe, why are you watching this movie? It clearly wasn't made for you. And on this point, I'm gonna say, yeah, you're quite wrong. See, I grew up in the 90s. I grew up on these drama rom-coms, and I am married to a woman who also grew up on those films. And since she wanted to watch it, we watched it. Now with that out of the way, let's go over the basic plot. Drea is our Regina George, super popular mean girl dating the hottest guy in an ultra-wealthy Florida prep school. But plot twist, she's poor and on a scholarship, and her mom is a single mother and an ER nurse. When we meet her, we see a somewhat rival mean girl, but not really, make fun of her for not having a new dress, saying Drea was seen buying her dress at the Salvation Army. And in order to establish Drea's character, we watch her play an Uno reverse card, making a speech to publicly shame that girl into giving her whole wardrobe to said Salvation Army. Of course, the buying of the dress and the selling of the wardrobe are done in an annoying say don't show way, but the point was just to see how manipulative and clever our lead is when someone insults her. We need to establish her girl boss bona fides. Then we meet Max, Drea's wealthy asshole boyfriend, who says he's gonna miss her all summer while she's gone at tennis camp, and while professing his love, he talks her into making a sex tape for him, which she does. Now, whatever. This is something that actually happens with kids, unfortunately, so it's not that unrealistic, it's just how it's played that matters. Because the next day, the sex tape leaks to everyone at the school except apparently Drea, her friends, or anybody she knows, as though this is still 1999, where you need to wait for your mom to get off the phone so you can load AOL all the way to see your new messages. This is 2022, and there is a 0% chance she wouldn't have been tagged in a tweet, Facebook message, VidVoc response video, something, anything, but no. The reason why the whole school knows before her isn't explained, but it's only because we need that 90s scene of everyone staring at her in the hallway because member berries. Remember that awkward trope? I remember. When she confronts Max about it, he claims he was hacked, and in response, Drea punches him in the face, which lands her in trouble with the headmistress because assault is bad, obviously. But that the headmistress never openly addresses the lack of evidence for the sex tape leak is telling. This is the scene traditionally where the authority figure says you need evidence or some such, but instead she tells Drea that she expects her to be smarter than her peers, and she must have misjudged her, which is just terrible advice in such a distressful and awkward time. Now we also need to talk about the sex tape problem for a second because it doesn't really work as a trope here. First of all, the idea that the sex tape leaked and therefore ruined her life is so The Craft, just substituting a tape for a rumor. But it's 2022, not 1995 or even 2003. Millionaires make sex tapes. In fact, one of the best known and most wealthy entertainment families in the world got a lot of their publicity from allegedly deliberately leaking a sex tape after the woman in question's heiress friend had her own tape leaked 3 years prior. The idea that a sex tape in and of itself is ruinous isn't really realistic without some outside parameters, such as parental or peer disapproval, of which there was relatively none outside of the oh my god it's her trope scene. The why is missing in this major defining plot point. Why is this situation so shameful for our mean girl in the era of OnlyFans? What does she herself have to lose? I mean, I know it's embarrassing, but a better written character would have told us how it embarrassed her, or it would have been used to her advantage. The movie Easy A comes to mind, where the protagonist uses her personal trauma to make herself a stronger and better person. It would also be more sympathetic if there was some kind of underlying body issue or something on the tape that was particularly embarrassing and exploited, but again, nothing. And this isn't meant to victim blame, as the trauma that Drea seems to suffer is not from the sex tape leak, it's from her loss of social status, which she only really loses after she punches Max and leaves for the summer. But let's move along. During the summer, Drea goes to summer tennis camp and meets our second lead, Eleanor. Eleanor seems to be nice, caring, and concerned, which I suppose instantly lets us know there's something else going on with this girl. The fact that she's seen reading Strangers on a Train also clues us in. And while at camp, Sansa Stark sees the sex tape and apparently passes it around, meaning even at camp, Drea can't escape her apparent and yet to be defined shame. Then coincidentally, Sansa is caught with drugs in her possession and she gets kicked out of camp and carted off to Club Fed, with Drea in the narration acting as though she totally had something to do with this obvious frame job, but denying she had anything to do with it at the same time, with no explanation or further inquiry warranted. warranted. When Drea goes to leave camp, her 2003-era Mitsubishi Eclipse doesn't start, and Eleanor comes to the rescue in her 1960s Studebaker Gran Turismo Hawk. I mention what these cars are because this is one of the only times that it's shown that Drea is not as rich, or at least as rich as her peers, as the contrast between these cars is pretty obvious. But the fact that she has a car sort of breaks the "oh my god, I'm so poor" narration we get throughout the film. Poor kids don't have cars of their own, period, usually even with a job. Really poor kids live with their parents in the same car. And thus this scene where Drea tells Eleanor that her car is bricked is a stunningly missed opportunity to give Drea real character depth. Her car is broken and she doesn't freak out about it. She doesn't wonder how she's going to pay for the thing to be fixed. She doesn't cry. She doesn't worry about her mom having to work extra hours to cover the repairs. Nothing. She just annoyingly accepts the offer to essentially get into a stranger's car, all so the rest of the plot can happen. Not exactly the actions of a member of the lower class who just lost their one type of status. Anyways, in the car, small talk ensues and it becomes established that Eleanor is a lesbian who at 13 came out to a girl she thought was her friend at a summer camp, and said friend ended up making fun of her for her orientation and claimed that Eleanor assaulted her. That led to the spreading of lies about Eleanor and making her into a social pariah, and this sharing of trauma allows Drea and Eleanor to bond. We also find out that Eleanor will be attending the same school as Drea in their senior year, and shock of shocks, the girl who allegedly spread the lies about her, Carissa, is also at that school, but now she's out and proud and despairingly called a crunchy lesbian by Drea. So anyways, then pointless tropey things happen. Eleanor meets a nice girl she instantly crushes on who gives you your required tour of the school. You know, the one in every high school or college movie, be it Mean Girls or PCU. The one where they say, this is this clique, that's that clique, over here is this collection of weirdos. Yeah, that scene. But there's a key difference in this movie in that none of these groups matter at all for anything more than scenery, other than the High Court, who are your plastics of this universe. But this time, there are boy plastics, and despite being very diverse, not one of them really has a definable personality. There is no Gretchen Wiener holding on to popularity to keep herself relevant. There's no super silly Karen who is dumb but generally sweet. Nothing. They are blank, empty, and replaceable. I could not tell you one of their names if I tried, whereas you knew and could probably quote the side characters by the end of Mean Girls. We find out at the beginning of the new school year that Max is now dating Drea's best friend, who's obviously not really her friend, and she's immediately cast out from the group owing to her hitting Max the year prior and no longer dating Max. None of these kids kept in contact all summer in an age of social media, and despite having phones at tennis camp and elsewhere, Drea never once saw an Instagram post, reel, Snapchat, anything giving her a clue into what was going on or that she was now a social outcast. Nobody involved in the making of this movie understands how the internet, social media, or teenagers work. So then an assembly takes place and Max makes a speech where he publicly shames Drea for clout, I guess. I'm not really sure. The school, in a stunningly brave and bravely stunning lack of oversight, lets him start the cisgendered something ally club, and there's no blowback or drama even after he shames Drea. So, embarrassed again, Drea runs off and Eleanor follows her, and then finally the actual plot begins, the strangers on a train part, where they're gonna do each other's revenge. You know, do revenge? Like the dumb name of the movie? I couldn't roll my eyes hard enough at this scene. It was hard to watch. Anyways, Eleanor's gonna infiltrate the cool kids, and Drea's gonna join some farming thing Carissa's in charge of, and they're gonna dig up dirt and ruin those mean fellow students. This sets the stage for our lazy and contrived Strangers on a Train homage. By comparison, in both the book, written by Patricia Highsmith, and the Farley Granger movie, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, two people agree to kill somebody for the other person because neither has a connection to each other, or the potential victims of their plot. This is key. This is fundamental. This was missed by the people who made this movie. Because in this movie, that premise is entirely broken. Because Drea and Eleanor go to the same school, and when Eleanor infiltrates the mean girl clique, she ends up having the same friends Drea used to have, which includes her target. The very basis for the plot, and lazy homage, is ruined by the mechanics of the movie, and it's frustrating considering that Strangers on a Train is quite possibly my favorite Hitchcock film. Strangers wasn't just done dirty here, it was done stupid. Okay, fine. Moving on. In order for Eleanor to infiltrate and join the cool kids club, something needs to happen. You know what that means, right? In order for the awkward girl to be popular, she needs a makeover. Hair, makeup, clothes, the whole thing. Just like in Clueless and She's All That and not another teen movie and. Because she has to be sexy and pretty and not, like Janie, have glasses, a ponytail, and paint on her overalls. And Drea? Yeah, Drea has to talk to people, which according to her, she's really good at. But oh wait, plot twist, she's not. She comes off as annoying and condescending to the farm kids because she's annoying and condescending. But somehow, despite lacking any reflection or growth, she manages to worm her way into the crunchy group, discovering a mystery locked shed on campus that no one, not even teachers, have been into, except Carissa. Eleanor, meanwhile, playing the cute and quirky new girl with Drea's direction, manages to infiltrate the cool kids group in a single day, which tracks with the whole Mean Girls Twilight theory that all anyone has to do is be mildly attractive and new and everyone will just fawn over you. Sure, why not? That's so realistic. She instantly and obviously attracts the attention of Max, and equally as instantly is invited to all of the parties and is on track to be the most popular girl in school. This is quite easy and without struggle. At a party, Eleanor sneaks around Max's house, of course, finds his bedroom and his iPad, where she finds proof that he is cheating on his girlfriend with the Instagram witch. Wait, who is that? Oh, that's right, it's the girl who insulted Drea all the way back in the beginning. You know, about Drea buying her dress at the Salvation Army? Right, that girl. She's in one of the window dressing cliques that we were introduced to, but then forgot about because they don't matter. Drama, and more drama ensues. Who cares? Eleanor is caught. Max appears to open up to her. Meanwhile, Drea goes to the beach and snags the keys to the mystery shed at the farm. More boring drama, and then things go way off the rails, like holy shit, what just happened? See, when Drea and Eleanor go and open the shed that they stole the keys to, they find that it's nothing but illegal narcotics, magic mushrooms and weed specifically, but who knows what else. Right there on campus, and not one person noticed. Nobody smelled anything, nobody saw anything, no teachers ever checked or knew anything. And these are not little plants either. This is like full harvest amount of drugs. And that's when it really hit me. There has been one, well, maybe two adults in this entire movie. The headmistress and I think a vice principal at one rally. But really, no teachers, no parents, no cops, no mentors, no bosses or coaches, nothing. And part of the teen movie genre is often the unrealistic expectations of parents, the supportive teacher, the wise older brother, some guiding adult figure. But not in this movie. The one and only adult who matters, the one who is kind of uninvolved and largely downgraded to a joke about how hot she is the headmistress. That's it. No parent ever shows up. No teacher gives homework or advice. Nothing. It's unsettling. In fact, we never even see Drea's mom. And frankly, it breaks quite a bit of the movie. So after discovering the drugs that no adult was around to find, Drea decides that she's going to drug the entire senior class at a dinner that Carissa is in charge of making with ingredients from the school garden. Again, with no oversight from school staff. And Drea also drops an anonymous tip about the contents in the shed in order to get Carissa booted from school and completing her half of the stranger's revenge plot. During the dinner in question, when everybody is tripping balls, Eleanor takes Max's phone and clones it so they can expose his cheating, thereby allowing everyone to see that he's not a real feminist and in fact a total scumbag. Instead of doing it right then, so the plot can move closer to graduation, Drea decides to leak Max's dirty laundry on Valentine's Day while his club is giving a speech. For dramatic effect. For this plan to succeed, Drea and Eleanor release the text messages, which we must assume includes the somewhat lewd photos sent to and from the girls that Max is cheating with, which put Drea and Eleanor into a similar boat as Max. They might not have released a sex tape, maybe they did, who knows, but they certainly put out revealing photos that could have exposed and embarrassed fellow female classmates. In their quest for vengeance, they became the very things they sought to destroy, and that Drea ultimately really was all along. Once the content's released, their plan works for a few minutes, until Max's new girlfriend and Drea's former friend uses a PR firm to come up with damage control messaging. This messaging comes in the form of telling the school that Max and Tara are in a committed non-monogamous relationship, and the student body eats it up. Instead of people being kind of weirded out by the concept, everyone goes on about how progressive it is, how now everyone has a chance to sleep with Max, and it's kind of gross, honestly, considering we're talking about kids here. It's also stupid, because Drea and Eleanor don't just have photos and evidence of his cheating, they have his text messages and a cloned copy of his phone, which means they likely have any evidence they might need to prove that he leaked the sex tape, and that the narrative being spun about his non-monogamous relationship is nonsense. What's worse is that this premise negates the drama of Drea's sex tape and the premise of this movie. If this student body can be so easily manipulated on this issue of non-monogamy, why would a sex tape be such a taboo issue to this oh-so-progressive, sex-positive student body? With each new bit of drama, this movie falls apart just a little bit more. So something who cares, something drama, it's now Eleanor's birthday, and Drea being Drea forgets, Cause she's a bad person who only cares about herself. Meanwhile, the popular kids threw Eleanor a birthday party and Drea showed up, which causes Drea and Eleanor to have a spat because something, now people will know we know each other, as if that wasn't possible beforehand. And Drea decides, for reasons, to go visit Carissa at the treatment facility she's in, which is a major issue to Drea. You see, rich kids don't get arrested, they go into treatment. Which is where we run into Sansa Stark again, for no real reason. When Drea finds Carissa and has a conversation with her, she asks why she was so mean to Eleanor, and here is when the M. Night Shyamalama ding-dong level plot twist of the movie takes place, and the big reveal is, sweet, sickly lesbian Eleanor was actually nosy Nora the whole time! Wait, what? Who? Right, we have no idea, because in Hollywood, show don't tell is dead, and it's been replaced with endless exposition dumps, less compelling than your letter to the editor section of your local free alternative weekly newspaper. We're told that Nosy Nora was a super ugly big-nosed girl who came out to Drea at summer camp, and it was Drea who had spread the rumors about her and forgotten about it. That's right, ladies and gents, the entire plot, the whole thing, all the twists and turns, all of everything, was orchestrated by Nosy Nora, who had a nose job, a name change, and a glow-up. Somehow, in this era of social media, nobody, no one, not one person in the entire school remembered who she was, except for Carissa, who called her Nora back in Act 1, despite all going to camp with her just a few years ago. Now, this is a Season 2 reveal that required a Season 1 plotline, backstory, something? But no, what a twist! From here, the rest of the plot almost doesn't matter, honestly. This twist was the crux of the whole movie. Oh no, they weren't strangers. Oh no, they knew each other the whole time. Nora was the puppet master all along. And the movie hinges, quite literally, on Drea being such a terrible person that not only did she traumatize Nora at camp, it was such a non-issue to her that she couldn't even remember doing it when the story was being told to her by her victim. We then run through some drama, nonsense, pointless exposition, the villain reveal by Eleanor, a car wreck, which very temporarily puts Drea in the hospital for a brief amount of time, where we still don't see her mother, who's a nurse, and Tara apologizes for being a terrible friend. The car crash was, of course, orchestrated by Eleanor to get Drea back in with the plastics by way of sympathy, so she could score an invite to a debaucherous party, where Max, while coked out of his head, admits on a secret camera to dropping the sex tape, which, I repeat, they should have already had evidence of considering they cloned his phone. Then, with the video confession in hand, we wrap the movie up with Max getting expelled and having his Yale acceptance revoked, and that spot being offered to Drea by the headmistress, and the headmistress telling Drea to take off and just be 17. But let's circle back to the point that Drea drugged the entire senior class with magic mushrooms. She suffers no consequences for that stunt? The end of this movie felt ridiculously rushed, as though they had no third act in mind before filming, or perhaps the third act didn't test well, because this hodgepodge of nonsense was, well, nonsense. I really do feel like a better ending lives somewhere on the cutting room floor. In a better, more compelling version of this film, Drea would have used another Uno reverse card, bringing that opening scene about the Salvation Army full circle, and we would find out that she manipulated Max into dropping the sex tape to get out of the toxic relationship with him, or to set the rest of the events into motion. Or perhaps it would have all been a plan to tear down the super rich bitches who had made her feel unwanted when she was young and poor, maybe even Tara for treating her like a charity case. But I also want to talk about the poverty angle again for a minute, because not one moment in this movie, not once did Drea look any less wealthy or fashionable, except for maybe in her car, than anyone else at the school, let alone poor. She had her own car and lived in a decent home, which when called cozy, she complains means small. Drea wasn't poor by any stretch of the imagination. She simply suffered from envy. I mean, give me a scene where she has to make her own super fashionable clothes, show her shopping at Goodwill, or using a broken and cracked phone, having to eat ramen while her mom is away. Anything. Show me that Drea really lives a life of less than in a way that matters, like so many better movies have done for decades. Ultimately, this movie was pointless, vapid, and missed the one thing, the most basic thing that all teen movies of the 90s and early 2000s really had, a message in the form of a moral compass. That compass didn't always point due north by any stretch of the imagination, but all teen flicks at the time, at least the good ones, had a winner and a loser, where the good guy had to struggle and grow, with that struggle being why we cared when they came out on top. The bad guy was usually given a chance at redemption and refused it, which made their comeuppance so much more satisfying. Sure, in this movie we have the evil ex, Max, get in trouble after his villain monologue at the end, but he was sort of a minor villain in the movie. The real villain was Drea the entire time, and she gets off scot-free. Worse, she becomes true friends with Eleanor, gets the new guy, gets a chance at her dream acceptance to Yale, which she turns down to join the Peace Corps to further her new relationship, which honestly also feels like a manipulation, and she lives happily ever after. During the credits, Drea reveals that she told the school what she did to Carissa, and that Carissa was still expelled for growing drugs on campus. I need to clarify that this means that she told the school what she did, which means admitted to drugging the entire senior class and framing Carissa for the crime. The idea that the school didn't notify the parents, or that nobody saw on social media what happened, and that nobody knows that the students were drugged is dumb. That Drea suffered no consequences is worse because they made the point that Carissa did something bad while ignoring that what Drea did was by magnitudes worse. If there was a good guy in this movie, up until the big reveal of Nosy Nora, it was Eleanor, and honestly her being Nosy Nora just made her more sympathetic. But somehow she became the bad guy from that point in the movie forward. Drea treated her like trash, wasn't a real friend, and somehow, because Eleanor was the one manipulating things and trying to bring down Drea the whole time, we're supposed to pretend that Eleanor isn't the protagonist of the film. Overall, I think this movie missed every single opportunity it had to tell a good story, to build interesting characters, to capture the essence of the films it worked so awkwardly to ape, and it certainly lost the point and the plot when it comes to pretending to understand the premise of Strangers on a Train, and that's that the two people are strangers. The only thing this movie got right in regards to the movies it wanted so badly to be was in the music category, but even that was overdone and cliche. All of that being said, I'm giving this movie 2 of 5 stars. Didn't like it, I don't recommend it, even for a lazy Netflix and chill bit of background noise. And that's all I have for Do Revenge 2022. Thanks for watching, listening, subscribing, yada yada yada. Cheers!